By 3 weeks from the day my sister reappeared and filed in Westchester Family Court, a judge could have ended the life I built for my nephew with one sentence. That is what I feared. Not because we had done anything wrong, but because whispers can travel faster than facts and courts only see what you can prove. I am Samantha Pierce, Vice President of Marketing at a New York fintech, the high-achieving, high-six-figure type who color codes calendars and keeps backup chargers in every bag. I thought I understood betrayal. Missed birthdays, lopsided favors, the small family debts that never get paid back. I was wrong. 10 years earlier, a ranger in the Hudson Highlands called me after midnight about a 5-year-old boy who would not speak to anyone except me, my nephew Evan. Here is the part that matters for the record. Westchester County Child Protective Services placed Evan with me that night under kinship care. By the next morning, Westchester Family Court issued a temporary order that put his safety in writing. No drama, just a form, a signature, and a promise I intended to keep. That promise would become the defense against everything that came later. I am the responsible one. You probably know my type: scholarships instead of allowances. 2 jobs through college, family calls when something breaks, and somehow you have the toolkit and the time. Strong, they say. Strong is a polite word for always on. If you have ever been the person who buys the groceries, pays the copay, and remembers the passwords, tell me where you are watching from. This story is for you. My family's pattern was set early. Rowan, my brother, kept his word even when it hurt. He left a carefully structured trust for his son that would remain locked until Evan turned 21. Alyssa, my older sister, kept her spotlight. New reinventions, new explanations, the same empty center. I kept the receipts. And I mean that literally. Looking back now, it still amazes me how much safety you can build out of quiet routines and boring documentation. I work in systems, so I built one at home. A folder on my laptop labeled Evan mirrored to the cloud and a physical drive. Subfolders for school medical activities and communications. A spreadsheet that logged everything from parent-teacher meetings to therapy sessions. Ring doorbell clips that showed him arriving home at the same time night after night. Bank statements and payment app screenshots that told a simple story in black and white. This is a stable life paid for on time. I did not know who I would need to show it to. I only knew that one day someone would demand proof. The night Alyssa returned, all of that preparation stopped feeling obsessive and started feeling like insurance. She did not knock. She made an entrance. Smile for the camera hair curled a white Lamborghini idling at the curb like a dare. She used the word mother as if a decade had not passed. She talked about opportunities as if cash were love. And before I could finish a cup of coffee, the rumor mill started to hum. What they did not know was this. I am very calm when chaos wants a show. I do not fight noise with noise. I fight it with evidence. I already had the receipts, the timelines, the ring clips, and the school letters. I knew the difference between a boundary and a wall. I knew the difference between a threat and a case file. So here is our starting line, clean and accurate. Westchester County. I was 30 when the ranger called. I am 40 now. Evan was 5 then. He is 15 now. He is thriving. The trust his father left remains locked until he turns 21, exactly as written. Alyssa has returned and chosen a courtroom over a conversation. And I have decided to tell this story the way I lived it, quietly, precisely, with every claim resting on something I can show. If you have ever been painted as difficult for insisting on rules, stay with me. If you have ever been told blood is blood while someone tried to rewrite history, stay with me. I will walk you through the sacrifice, the betrayal, the awakening, and the orderly way consequences arrive when you refuse to lose your temper and refuse to lose the thread. Looking back now, I can see how the load settled on me so quietly I almost called it normal. Westchester County placed Evan with me under kinship care that first night, and by the next morning, the family court signed a temporary order. After that, life did not become dramatic. It became structured. That is how safety sounds in a house with a child who has already learned what silence costs. I built our days the way I build a go-to-market plan. Clear goals, simple rules, repeatable steps, breakfast at 7, school drop-off on time, a weekly therapy session with a clinician who specialized in grief, in kids who dislike questions, a Saturday STEM block where Evan could take apart old electronics and make them tell us what they used to be. I kept my camera roll boring on purpose. Photos of homework on the table, shoes lined up by the door, a clock on the oven reading the same bedtime over and over. Proof is not a speech. Proof is routine captured. The money side mattered, and I did not pretend it did not. I made high six figures, which meant I could turn stability into line items without breaking us. I separated every cost because I knew one day a lawyer would want to see the split. Direct expenses went in one column: school tuition, tutoring therapy, sports fees, doctor visits, glasses, textbooks, laptops, field trips. In another column, I logged proportional housing costs by square footage used, and nights at home because a roof and heat are not free, and a judge appreciates math that respects reality. Over the most recent 30 months, the direct spend averaged about $18,000 per month. That added up to roughly $540,000 across tutoring therapy and a private school program that fit how Evan learns. For 2 years, that tuition was about $38,000 per year. After scholarships kicked in, I reduced the tutoring line and kept the therapy line steady because a calm nervous system is not negotiable. Looking back now, I see how those numbers were not just payments. They were a map of what we valued. We chose skills over status. Summer programs in coding and robotics over vacations designed for photographs, track fees over luxury gear, a ventilation system in the garage based on OSHA guidance rather than a flashier car I did not need. I documented the safety choices too: masks and eye protection on the shelf, a printed checklist on the wall that Evan initialed before he ever touched a tool. If anyone asked later whether a 15-year-old was allowed to learn in a garage, I wanted the answer to be yes, and here is how we made it safe. Family roles do not change because you wish them to. I was the responsible child long before I had a title or a team. Scholarships instead of allowances. 2 campus jobs instead of fall break. I did my laundry in a coin-op basement and learned to spot dryers that steal quarters. I graduated without debt and with a resume a little heavier than it should have been. Meanwhile, my sister Alyssa never met a reinvention she did not try. A new course, a new coach, a new story about how the world had wronged her and what would fix it this time. My mother called me strong in that careful tone people use when they are praising you for absorbing what they gave someone else. The golden child and the scapegoat is an ugly pattern because it works. The golden child fails softly and lands on a cushion. The scapegoat succeeds loudly and gets a list of new tasks. When Rowan died, that balance tilted further. He left a trust for his son that would remain locked until Evan turned 21. It was the most Rowan thing he could have done. Plan, protect, and make sure a boy who had already lost too much would have a runway when he became a man. The trust would not save a child from grief. It would one day give him choices. I held to that. Choices are oxygen. We did not live inside a courtroom for a decade. We lived inside evenings that smelled like pasta and garlic and graphite from pencil tips. Evan did not become a project. He became himself. Quiet. Focused. The kind of kid teachers depend on when other kids are wobbling. He ran track because running quieted him. He built robots because puzzles soothed him. He did not post much. He read the comments under other kids' posts and decided the internet did not need to know his face in order to doubt it. I did not argue. You cannot demand openness from a child who had to learn self-protection early. Looking back now, there were 3 checks that told me our system was working. The first came from Westchester County CPS, a few months in a routine follow-up to close the initial placement. They visited, saw the charts on the fridge and the shoes by the door, spoke with Evan's therapist, and closed the file with no concerns. Years later, there was a brief wellness check when the school nurse updated contact protocols. Again, no issues. And in the year before Alyssa returned, our pediatrician wrote one of those simple letters only doctors know how to write. Healthy, growing, meeting developmental expectations. It took 2 sentences to say what my folders had been saying for years. Not all sacrifice is money or time. Some of it is restraint. I never spoke poorly of Alyssa to Evan. I answered questions directly when he asked them, and I let the silence sit when he did not. I kept photographs of his father where they were easy to see and did not editorialize about the man who left the frame. When milestones came, I acknowledged the missing chair and moved on. Children do not need you to craft a villain to understand what a hero is. They notice who shows up and who does not. I did say no, and I said it more often than I had ever allowed myself before. I said no to late-night calls that wanted money with no plan. I said no to family dynamics that expected me to fix a mess I did not make. I said no to being the person who absorbed everyone's emergency and somehow apologized for not smiling while I did it. Boundaries did not make me hard. They made me steady. There is a difference. There were hints even then that the past would not stay put. Alyssa would surface in a group text now and then with a grand idea and the same old timing. A brunch that we were supposed to pay for. A plan for Evan she had not asked him about. I did not fight on a phone. I used one sentence that saved me every time. Please send that through counsel. People who are not serious hate that sentence because it removes the stage. It also preserves the record, which is what I cared about. Looking back now, I can also admit that I was preparing for something I could not name. I tightened the system without becoming paranoid. I kept copies of important papers off-site. I added a credit freeze to my standing to-do list after hearing a colleague's story about identity misuse. I trained myself to narrate dates and times into my phone in the car so that my memory would have a timestamp if I ever needed one. It was not fear. It was the habit of a person who has watched chaos try the front door before and decided a deadbolt is not overkill. The sacrifice I am proudest of does not fit in a spreadsheet. It is the way I gave Evan my attention without turning him into a mirror for my anxiety. When he wanted to try out for track, I did not make him rehearse potential embarrassments. We bought running shoes and showed up. When he broke down the old toaster and rebuilt it wrong 3 times, I did not step in with a lecture about efficiency. He figured it out, grinned, and wrote down the solution so he could show his therapist how he navigates frustration. That is growth you cannot fake. I did plant evidence because future me might need it, not staged photos, real ones. A video of him arriving home at 9 on weeknights time-stamped by the doorbell camera, a clean safety log initialed by him before we powered the ventilation in the garage, email threads with teachers and coaches where I asked for feedback and documented accommodations, payment app screenshots annotated with categories. I did not post any of it. I archived it. The internet is a megaphone, court is a filing cabinet. I knew which one we would need. Looking back now, I understand what those years built. They built a boy who trusted routines and a woman who trusted herself. They built a record that did not need adjectives. They built a home that could withstand a storm without shouting at it. So when Alyssa rolled back into Westchester with a grin that said a room owed her its attention, I did not have to invent a plan. I already had one. It was called The Truth Documented. And that is the bridge into what came next, because sacrifice only feels like sainthood when no one tests it. The test arrived quickly. First as a rumor you could swat away with a laugh, then as a pattern that would take more than dignity to defeat. In a minute, I will show you how suspicion becomes certainty when you listen carefully and write everything down. It started small. A whisper with clean hands. On a Monday morning, a PTA mom pulled me aside in the parking lot and asked in that careful voice people save for gossip, dressed as concern, whether Evan was spending too much time around tools in our garage. I smiled. I told her our safety checklist lives on the wall and that Evan initials it before he ever flips a switch. She nodded, unconvinced. I made a mental note and opened the evidence folder on my phone in the car. One line, date, time, summary, source. By Wednesday, the school counselor emailed to touch base. A stranger had phoned the office claiming to be from Westchester County CPS, asking for Evan's records. The principal did the right thing. He called the real CPS. They had not called. Spoofing is a trick. It is also a crime. He alerted me, then logged it. I added his email to the folder and turned on my recorder before I returned his call, so the timeline would have a voice as well as a text. A day later, a message landed at my work address from a burner email with a name that sounded like 2 first names glued together. It asked if our company had a policy about executives exposing minors to hazardous equipment. I do not respond to traps. I forwarded it to HR with a short note and attached the same safety checklist Evan has used for years. Boring is a shield. I have practiced. Breadcrumbs fell on schedule after that. A new account in a local Facebook group posted a thread about an aunt with a drinking problem and a boy left alone late. I do not drink. And the Ring camera shows Evan arriving home at 9 night after night, holding a backpack and a key. I exported a short clip timestamped and filed it under community claims, with links to the original posts in case anyone tried to edit or delete them later. By the weekend, a friend in our company's people team texted a screenshot of a message she received on LinkedIn. Same concern language, same rhythm, different sender. I thanked her, logged the URL, and resisted the urge to explain anything. You do not explain your way out of a smear. You document your way through it. Then came the knock on our door I had been expecting. Westchester County CPS, 2 caseworkers, professional, courteous. They had received an anonymous report and needed to lay eyes on our reality. I welcomed them and offered water, and stayed out of the way while they spoke with Evan privately at the kitchen table. Meanwhile, I walked the second caseworker through the garage. The ventilation system hummed softly. Eye protection and masks on the shelf, the checklist on the wall with a signature line and the date. She nodded. We reviewed school attendance and the 2-sentence doctor's note I keep in a clear sleeve. After their walkthrough, they let me read their summary aloud so I could hear the words the way a judge would. No concerns at this time. Case to remain open for monitoring, then close if no further credible reports. I thanked them. They left. I scanned their card and added today's date to the file named CPS Follow-Up. That visit would become the recent check-in referenced later without scrambling. I wish the story stopped at mischief. It did not. The group chat surfaced on a Tuesday night. A cousin pinged me and asked if I wanted a laugh or a warning. I said both. He forwarded screenshots from a larger message thread where Alyssa's new boyfriend, a man who sells the performance of luxury for a living, bragged about a plan to soften my reputation on LinkedIn and introduce doubts in the school board's ear. His screenshots included an image from a smaller chat where Alyssa workshopped lines about putting Evan somewhere with discipline so she could focus on building a brand. People in that larger chat did not love it. One of them exported the entire exchange and sent it to my cousin. I did not trust screenshots on faith. I saved the originals, captured the message headers from the app export, and wrote down the device logs that showed when each image hit my phone. Metadata is not glamorous. It is how you make a rumor hold still. I still needed a voice, not my interpretation, not someone else's outrage. Her words clear and attached to a moment. I did not want a stunt. I wanted admissible truth. We found it by sitting still. Evan's teammate from robotics has an older sister named Maya. She is 21, lives in Williamsburg, and does what smart young people do in New York. She eats late in restaurant lounges where the bar is the backdrop, not the point. She texted me on a Friday. Alyssa is here, with a man who looks like a brochure. She is loud. I did not go. I asked Maya to be careful and to keep her distance unless she felt safe. 10 minutes later, she texted again. They sat beside her. Alyssa started a conversation because that is what Alyssa does when she believes a room owes her its attention. Maya did not just listen. She asked light questions any stranger would ask. How old is your kid? Where does he go to school? What are your plans once he graduates? She became a participant. In New York, that matters. One party to a conversation may record it. Maya tapped record. The audio is not dramatic. It is a hum of plates and voices with sentences set like stones. Kids are only cute when they are little. I am not wasting my life raising him. I did my time. Once I have custody, he is going to a military boarding school back east. Structure, discipline. He will thank me later. The trust it is for our family, not for his aunt to play pretend. Maya did not push. She did not bait. She asked what any friendly stranger would. Why military school? Why not stay where he is doing well? The answers were even plainer. New circles, better polish, a life that looks the part. She sent me the file and then wrote 2 lines that steadied me. I was part of the conversation. I will testify if you need me. I copied the file to 3 different places and had her email it to me so the header would capture time and IP. We now had more than a rumor. We had intention in Alyssa's own voice captured legally by someone who was present and engaged. Within an hour, a different kind of alarm went off. My phone buzzed with a fraud alert from a lender. A lease had been opened in my name for a luxury vehicle. The system flagged it because my credit profile does not fit that category. I called the number on the back of my card, went through the security questions, and listened while the agent read the file to me. my social security number, my address, a signature that looked like mine if you squinted, the model and color, a white Lamborghini. I asked for the dealership and the date. Then I said the only sentence that mattered. I did not authorize this. I filed a report with the Westchester police that night and froze my credit with the bureaus before I went to bed. The next morning, the lender's fraud unit called back. They had reviewed the documents, clear indicators of identity misuse. They opened an investigation and asked a simple, pointed question. Do you know where the vehicle is? I knew where it would be. That same night, Alyssa had bragged in her group chat about a family dinner at a restaurant in White Plains, complete with a time and a reservation name. The screenshots captured the name. The app headers captured the timestamps. I gave the lender what they needed. Then I put my phone face down and forced myself to breathe. Lenders enforce contracts. Police build cases. I did not need to show up with a camera. I needed to stand back and let the right people do their jobs. By then, the pattern had stopped pretending to be noise. Anonymous calls to schools, coordinated LinkedIn messages, a CPS visit that ended with no concerns, a lounge recording that said the quiet part out loud, a fraudulent lease in my name for the car idling at my curb a week earlier, a group chat that treated my life like a campaign plan. It was all of a piece, not a misstep, a plan. I did one more thing before I slept. I opened a new document titled Timeline for Counsel and wrote it as if the judge herself would read it. Dates spelled in full, names, times, attachments listed by file name, every breadcrumb in order, not a rant, a ledger. This is the hinge. Suspicion had been the opening act. Certainty is the curtain rising. In the next part, everything connects. The whispers, the recording, the fraud alert, the way a single word like custody can turn a child into a ticket. I will show you how the surface betrayal hid a deeper design, who helped, who looked away, and how long it had been in motion. Then we will turn the lights on. The night after I finished that timeline for counsel, everything snapped into focus. Not louder, clearer, like someone cleaned the glass. Layer 1. The surface betrayal. Custody was never about mothering. It was about money dressed as opportunity. Alyssa said it herself to a friendly stranger in a Williamsburg lounge. Ship him to a military boarding school. Use education to unlock a trust that does not belong to her. Pretend sacrifice. Spend the benefit. That was the front of the postcard. Layer 2. The deeper design. The smear was not random. It was a sequence. Anonymous calls to the school, coordinated messages on LinkedIn, a CPS visit that resulted in no concerns but still consumed hours and attention, and then the identity misuse that tried to drape my name over a luxury lease. Each move created paper that could be waived in court, concerned community chatter, school questions, a so-called lifestyle that made me look careless with a child. The design was not to prove I was unfit. It was to make me look uncertain and make a judge hesitate. Hesitation is a lever. You pull it and a boy's life moves. Layer 3. The pattern beneath the design. Alyssa has always believed rooms owe her applause. She picks tools that reward performance. Fast cars, loud entrances, people who like proximity to shine and do not read terms and conditions. The boyfriend, the dealership employee who did not mind a smudged signature if the commission looked good. The burner accounts that sound like real people until you read 2 sentences in a row. None of this was new. It was just finally organized. The moment of truth arrived with the sound of nylon straps singing. I was not the person filming. I was across the street behind a row of Maples hands in my coat pockets, phone face down. The lender's fraud unit had coordinated with the restaurant and the lot manager in White Plains, with Westchester police notified to avoid any breach of peace. Valet lights washed the pavement in soft gold. The tow operator worked with quiet precision, announcing each step and keeping his voice calm. He had a clipboard, he had the contract file, he had a printed copy of my police report. He did not need indignation, he had process. The Lamborghini rose an inch at a time. Alyssa's face moved through 3 familiar stations, surprise denial performance, before settling into the hard shell she uses when an audience will not cooperate. She looked right at me, though I was barely in the light, and said, You did this to humiliate me. I did not raise my voice. I said the only sentence that mattered. I did not sign for that car. The lender confirmed fraud and is enforcing its contract. Then I stepped back so the operator could finish without a scene. Sensory details stay with you whether you want them to or not. The soft click of a ratchet, the faint smell of hot brakes and winter air, the way a puddle takes the color of taillights and makes it look like something is bleeding. I remember the valet's eyes wide, then careful, because he suddenly understood this was not a reality show. It was a paper show. Paper beats volume every time. On the sidewalk, a few relatives shifted from foot to foot, unsure whether to comfort or to calculate. Someone started to raise a phone and then thought better of it when the lot manager shook his head. Good. No circus. The only records I needed were already in motion: the lender's repossession paperwork, the police incident number, the time-stamped reservation that placed Alyssa and the vehicle at that location. Facts do not need filters. Do not need. Standing there, I could see the whole diagram at once. The whisper campaign tries to soften the ground. The fake CPS call aims to pry loose records. The surprise CPS visit eats calendar space and introduces doubt. The lounge recording exposes motive. The fraudulent lease creates the optics of recklessness in my name. The group chat rehearses lines for anyone who might listen. All of it pointed at one word that sounds noble until you put numbers next to it: custody. I walked home that night under a sky so sharp it felt man-made. Streetlights hummed. My breath fogged. My mind finally stopped sprinting. The fear that had shadowed me since Alyssa's first knock gave up its shape. It was never that she would win on the merits. It was that she would exhaust me into a mistake. That is how people like her succeed. They turn your dignity into a liability by making you defend it every hour. So I did the opposite of what she wanted. I slowed down. I reviewed everything with fresh eyes, like a stranger hired to audit my life. First, the recording. It was clean. Maya asked natural questions. She was a participant. New York's one-party consent covered her. I had the original file, the email header, and Maya's text offering to testify. We drafted an affirmation for her to sign under penalty of perjury, and my attorney, Thomas Brennan, scheduled a preparation call so she would know exactly how to anchor what she heard in time and place. Second, the CPS contact. We had the recent Westchester visit logged with the worker's card and the summary I read back to them word for word. No concerns at this time. We prepared a polite letter for the agency's counsel, requesting a custodian of records or a caseworker to appear if necessary, so the judge would not be asked to take our word for anything. Third, the school and doctor. The principal had already documented the spoofed call and his verification steps. He agreed to provide an affirmation and appear if subpoenaed. The pediatrician's letter said simply what needed saying: healthy, growing, meeting expectations. No one tried to turn it into a speech. Fourth, the fraud. The Westchester police report was filed. The lender's fraud unit had written confirmation that the documents were not mine, with a plan to refer any evidence of identity theft to detectives. The repo paperwork listed the date, time, and location, along with the lot manager's cooperation. The chain of actions flowed in the correct order report to police lender, validates vehicle recovered without disturbance. Clean edges. Finally, the money. I rebuilt the financial summaries in 2 columns, so even an unfriendly reader could not twist them. Direct child expenses in one, tuition therapy, tutoring, sports fees, supplies. Shared household costs in another, with a reasonable method for allocation that any accountant would recognize. Over the most recent 30 months, the direct child support averaged about $18,000 per month, totaling roughly $540,000. 2 years of private school at about $38,000 per year before scholarships kicked in. Numbers are not morality. They are handwriting. They show who picked up the pen when it was time to sign. I also checked the smallest things that trip people up. Dates spelled out. Names consistent. Westchester venue correct. No stray mention of New York City's ACS when the jurisdiction here was Westchester County CPS. Every time I saw a place where prior drafts in my head had blurred, I fixed it on paper. Clarity is a kindness. To a judge, to a child, to yourself. When I looked up from the stack, the anger I had been carrying was gone. Not forgiven, just finished. There is a difference. I understood finally that the point was not to win an argument with my sister. It was to end a pattern that started long before any of us had words for it. Golden child, responsible child. A trust that waited for the boy it was meant to serve. A woman who believed rules are for other people. A woman who learned rules and used them like railings. I texted Thomas and asked for an early morning slot. He replied with a time and the words "bring the whole folder." We were ready to move from understanding to action. Here is the bridge to the next part, and I want you to hear it plainly. Retaliation is loud. Accountability is quiet. We chose quiet. Phone calls to the right offices. Letters without adjectives. Subpoenas where needed. A preparation plan that would let the facts carry themselves. No theatrics. No bait taken. In a moment, I will show you how we set those consequences in motion step by step until the balance of power changed hands without a single raised voice. I met Thomas Brennan at 8 sharp with 2 copies of the folder and a calm I had earned. We took the largest conference room, spread everything out, and turned chaos into a checklist. First, we rebuilt the case in clean lines, a master timeline down the center, every event anchored to a date, a time, and a source. On the left, a column for exhibits. On the right, a column for witnesses. No adjectives, no speculation, only what we could show. We organized the evidence into 5 sections. Section 1. Child well-being. Report cards. Attendance records. Coach notes. The pediatrician's 2 sentences. Healthy, growing, meeting expectations. We added a short letter from the therapist describing focus on resilience and routine, careful to avoid anything privileged. Section 2. Safety. The garage checklist printed and initialed across months. Photos of masks and eye protection on the shelf. A description of the ventilation system built to OSHA guidance, not a poster on a wall. We included a brief statement from a licensed contractor who installed it, confirming the specs in plain language. Section 3. Community contacts. A letter from the principal documenting the spoofed call and his verification with Westchester County CPS. The business cards from the CPS visit, and my note read back to the caseworker that their summary was no concerns at this time. We asked agency counsel for a records custodian to be available if needed. We did not ask the court to take our word for anything. Section 4. Digital evidence. The lounge recording captured by Maya, who was part of the conversation. Her written affirmation under penalty of perjury. The email header that fixed the file in time and place. Screenshots of group chats accompanied by exported message headers from the app, so a defense of fake could not stand. We hired a small digital forensics firm to generate hash values for the key files and to write a short report on preservation. I do not love tech jargon in a family courtroom. I do love chain of custody that reads like a ruler. Section 5. Financials. 2 clear columns. Direct child expenses in 1. Tuition therapy, tutoring, sports supplies. Devices fees. Shared household costs in the other with a reasonable method for allocation. Over the most recent 30 months, the average direct spend was about $18,000 per month. That totaled roughly $540,000 devoted to Evan's education and care. Private school tuition was about $38,000 per year for 2 years before scholarships eased the bill. We attached bank statements and payment app screenshots with sensitive numbers redacted and descriptions that matched the ledger. Numbers are not emotion, they are proof of priorities. Then we addressed the fraud. I had already filed with Westchester Police and frozen my credit. Thomas called the lender's fraud unit on speaker, identified himself, and requested an affidavit from their investigator confirming the documents were not mine, and that the vehicle had been recovered without disturbance with the lot manager's cooperation. We asked for the repo contractor's work order and a brief note on process so no one could spin the scene into a confrontation. The facts were simple. I did not sign. The lender validated identity misuse. The lender enforced its contract. We also handled the interim risk. Thomas filed a narrow motion asking the court to set contact parameters until the hearing. Not drama, clarity, all communication through counsel, no unilateral contact with the school, no unannounced visits. The judge issued a short order that matched the request. That meant boundaries were not just polite anymore. They were enforceable. Next came witness prep. We started with the people outside our house: the principal, the coach, the contractor, Maya. Thomas walked each person through what to expect. Answer only what is asked. Do not guess. Anchor your memory to something ordinary. The principal chose the bell schedule. The coach chose a meet that weekend. The contractor chose a delivery receipt date. Maya practiced saying the words Alyssa said without apology or embellishment. Her voice did not shake. We prepared Evan in the gentlest way possible. Short, honest answers. I am safe at home. I am doing well at school. I do not want to leave. No rehearsed speeches. Judges trust teenagers who sound like themselves. I built the courtroom version of our home system, a thin binder with tabs, not a suitcase. The first tab held the timeline. Every other tab pointed back to it. When the judge looked up, I could answer a question in one sentence and then place a single page in front of her hand. It is amazing how much power is in a quiet page. We thought beyond the hearing, too. Thomas drafted a brief factual statement for after the ruling. 2 sentences thanking the court and noting that an identity misuse matter had been referred for review. No adjectives, no victory lap, just the truth offered once. I made one more set of calls. First, to Westchester County CPS counsel, to confirm availability if the judge wanted a witness. Then to the detective assigned to the identity theft report to make sure our contact details were current if the lender referred materials. Then to the school to confirm that interim contact would be through counsel, not to escalate, to stabilize. We handled the last logistics quietly. Instead of dumping files, we curated a few ring clips, Evan arriving at 9 3 nights in a row, backpack and key, and added a printed index with timestamps so the court could take notice without watching video. We brought extra sets for the clerk and charger cables because hearings run long. Overpacking looks nervous when you are new. It reads as professionalism when you are not. Mid-prep, Alyssa's attorney asked to talk informally. Thomas replied, "Please send proposals." In writing, they wanted joint custody, immediate access to educational funds, and a fall boarding school plan. We declined in 2 calm paragraphs. Evan's best interests mean stability. The trust is not apparent. Facts will decide. I did not consider a truce. Truces require trust, and we had systems witnesses and a boy who deserved a home, not a lever. As the hearing neared, the story became a file. Whispers turned into weightless pages because they carried no proof. We were not louder, just steadier. The night before court, Evan and I ate simple pasta at the island. He asked if he would have to speak. Yes, briefly. If he had to say more than he wanted. No. Routine steadied both of us. I checked the binder one last time. Dates spelled out names consistent, Westchester venue. Correct the recent CPS visit in place. The recording paired with an affirmation, the repo supported by documents, not drama, and the money in 2 columns, not boasts. I turned off the kitchen light and went to bed without rehearsing a judge's face. Preparation is the quiet half of power. The other half is letting facts speak. Westchester Family Court runs on paper and patience. We arrived early, binder thin and ready. Alyssa's counsel sold transformation pitching joint custody as a bridge and boarding school as a blessing. Thomas presented Evan report cards, attendance coach notes, the pediatrician's 2 lines, healthy growing meeting expectations, plus the recent CPS check that found no concerns, and the interim contact order routing everything through counsel. Witnesses followed. The principal described the spoofed call and his verification with Westchester CPS. The contractor explained the ventilation in plain English. Maya, a participant in the lounge conversation, authenticated the recording. The court accepted it. The lender's fraud affidavit walked the judge through my police report, the lender's review, and a peaceful recovery of the vehicle at a White Plains restaurant. I testified to our routine and the 2-column ledger. Over the most recent 30 months, direct child expenses averaged about $18,000 per month, roughly $540,000 toward Evan's education and care, with 2 years of private school, at about $38,000 per year before scholarships. Evan spoke last steady, brief, clear. Safe at home, doing well, no boarding school, Alyssa testified. The judge asked one clean question. Which is true, your sober plan today, or the plan heard on the recording that night? After a short recess, the ruling came the way justice often does, quietly in order. Petition denied. Guardianship remained with me. A 3-year order of protection barred direct contact with Evan and his school without court approval. Identity misuse issues would move through detectives then if warranted the district attorney. Best interest is a record, the judge said. No applause. We thanked the clerk, stepped into the small hallway, and left. At home, I posted 2 sentences. Westchester Family Court affirmed the current guardianship. An identity misuse matter has been referred to the proper authorities. Facts were enough. Consequences arrived on their own clock lender, and police closed loops. The school routed inquiries to counsel CPS, closed the anonymous case with no concerns. A brand quietly pulled a post, and a landlord asked for keys back. When a relative suggested grace, I answered, "Grace is not access. The order protects Evan. We will honor it." Equilibrium returned fast. Dinner at 7, homework at the island, a short run at dusk. Minimal exposure recording in court, not online. Repo documented by the lender, not me. A brief LinkedIn note that did not invite a fight. Dignity is a choice you repeat. We did not throw a party. We kept our schedule and planned the small CNC for spring. When you build correctly, the reward is simple, a roof that keeps the rain out.